Well, hello and welcome to another Faith, Philosophy and Life. Me and Mr. Shelton. I do hope that you are doing well. I'm deliberately quite small in the corner of the screen today because there's quite a lot of text that's going to appear on the screen. We're doing a unit on environmental sustainability, courtesy of TLM, who are an organisation who do qualifications for pupils, and the one that we're looking at actually is either a level 1 or level 2 qualification, depending on your your output, and it's called Formula E. So it's looking at environmental sustainability. As usual, you will need to grab a pen and paper. Do that while we've got our cheesy intro sequence. Okay, so our title today is Where Does Energy Come From? You'll know that we've been looking at pollution, we've been looking at climate change, global warming, looked at the national grid. We're going to look at where the national grid gets their energy from, because it's fine to have cables that link everything up, but where does that come from? So that's your title, Where Does Energy Come From? We're going to identify renewable and non-renewable energy sources. We're going to investigate Earth's limited resources and describe the impact on the environment if these resources are gone. And we're going to discuss what electricity is. So there's a real science focus in today's lesson. Now, the board specification criteria for this lesson to investigate Earth's limited resources and describe the impact on the environment if these are gone. As always, not massively complicated, sounds worse than it actually is. But let's get on. So in a moment, we're going to look at the difference between a renewable and non-renewable energy source. We're going to give 2 examples of both forms of energy, and you're also hopefully going to complete the copy and complete the table which is there in as much detail as you can. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to play a clip to you. I'm going to leave all of that on the screen for you. So you're going to need to pause it as we go. Look, there you go, that's what it looks like. I'm going to disappear now. You've got the questions there, you've got the table there that you'll need to draw out, and yeah, come back to me when you're done.
Around the world, renewable energy use is on the rise. And these alternative energy sources could hold the key to combating climate change. What is renewable energy? Renewable energy is generated from sources that naturally replenish themselves and never run out. The most common sources are solar, wind, hydro, geothermal, and biomass. Over 80% of the total energy consumed by humans is derived from fossil fuels. However, renewables are the fastest growing source of energy in the world. Renewable energy has many benefits. First, it can combat climate change because it creates no direct greenhouse gas emissions. The only emissions that they produce are indirect, meaning those that result from manufacturing parts, installation, operation, and maintenance. But even those are minimal. Second, renewable energy can decrease pollution and therefore reduce threats to our health. Wind, solar, and hydroelectric systems create no air pollution emissions, and geothermal and biomass energy systems emissions are much lower than non-renewable energy sources. Third, renewable energy is a reliable source of power. Because renewable energy sources are, well, renewable, they will never run out. Once built, renewable facilities cost very little to operate, and the fuel is often free. As a result, renewable energy prices tend to be stable over time. While renewable energy has many advantages, it is not without downsides. It is difficult for renewable energy sources to generate power on the same large scale as fossil fuels. Building wind farms and dams can disrupt wildlife and migration patterns and lead to ecological destruction. Both solar and wind energy are intermittent. They only generate power while the sun is shining or while the wind is blowing. Batteries can store excess energy for later use. However, they are often costly. While renewable energy presents some challenges, it also offers an environmentally friendly alternative to the greenhouse gas emissions and pollution of fossil fuels. And as advances in technology make renewable energy more accessible, affordable, and efficient, an end to climate change could be within our reach.
Renewable and non-renewable resources. What are renewable resources? Examples, costs, benefits. A renewable resource is a resource which can be used repeatedly and replaced naturally. Renewable energy almost never runs out. Some examples of renewable resources are solar energy, wind energy, hydro energy, biomass energy, and geothermal energy. The cost and benefits of renewable resources are: the quantity is limitless and will never run out. The energy is free to use, and it's environment friendly. The costs are: it's difficult and expensive to set up, and it's not always efficient because we need large amounts, which is not always available. So now that you know this, what are non-renewable resources? Examples, costs, benefits. So what a non-renewable resource is, it's just basically a resource of economic value that cannot be readily replaced by natural means on a level of equal to its consumption. Some examples are coal, natural gases, petroleum, propane, and fossil fuel oils. The costs and benefits of non-renewable resources are: it's cheap to use, it's easy to use, it's efficient and it only requires a small amount to produce a large amount of power. The costs are: it'll run out someday, causing serious environmental changes, and it releases toxic gases which are contributing to global warming.
So let's just check your knowledge. I'd like to look at these pictures here. I'd like to identify which of these are renewable and which are non-renewable. You don't have to write them down, but I do need you shouting at your screen so I can hear. So let's go. Obviously, I can't hear you, but I think this is what you said. Wind turbines were renewable, coal was non-renewable, oil, petrol, non-renewable, and hydro was renewable. Now we're going to drill into those in a little bit more depth. So you've got two questions here where you will need to answer the questions, please. So you need to write in full sentences, please, and answer these two questions on wind power. This again at Formula E. Wind power refers to the use of movement of the air to generate electricity. I'm sure you've seen wind turbines. These are wind turbines up at a beach near me. Early forms were windmills. I'm sure you know what a windmill looks like. If you don't, Google it. Wind turbines, you have three blades that are connected to a generator. There's lots of wind turbines that can be found on land and on sea. It's very true that the wind turbines at sea are a lot bigger and generate a lot more electric than wind turbines on land, and that's why it is better suited out the sea, because again you can have the blades a lot larger as well. It's also a lot more constant because that's the nature of being at sea. They are, however, a bit of an eyesore. Well, I remember when I first went to the beach that I lived near, there were no wind turbines. You could see straight across the horizon. It was really nice. And they've built a big wind farm, as they call it. So as an eyesore, it's pretty big. Okay, it's got to be fairly close to the coast because they have to anchor them. But it does generate a lot of electric, and it is clean electric because it's not burning any fossil fuels to do it. So give those two questions a bit of a go. and come back to me. And obviously, yeah, come back to me when you're done. Okay, if you struggle with any of that, then you will need to obviously Google some of the answers. Right, we're going to move on to our second power source, which is hydropower. So the question that you're going to be answering is, what is hydropower? What is hydropower? I've got a little clip to show you, but it refers to the use of electricity to when the electricity flows to generate electricity. Early forms of windmills, water mills, sorry, not windmills, we talked about that already. Turbines are used that spin round when the water gushes past, and we have dams and rivers for that. Anyway, let's watch this and I'll explain it a bit more.
Hydropower. Hydropower, or hydroelectricity, refers to the conversion of energy from flowing water into electricity. It is considered a renewable energy source because the water cycle is constantly renewed by the sun. One of the first uses of hydro energy was for mechanical milling, such as grinding grains. But today, modern hydro plants produce electricity using turbines and generators. The mechanical energy created by moving water spins rotors on a turbine. This turbine is connected to an electromagnetic generator, which produces electricity when the turbine spins. There are two main types of hydroelectricity production: dams and run-of-river. Hydro dams utilize the potential energy from dammed water to produce electricity. A dam is a large barrier constructed to raise the level of water and control its flow. The elevation created by the dam creates gravitational force for turning the turbine when water is released. Some dams also contain an additional reservoir at their base where water is stored to be pumped to the higher reservoir for release when electricity is in demand. This is referred to as pumped storage hydro. The second.
Brilliant. So now you need to give that question a go. I'm about to move on, so pause me if you need to. Okay, then you've got solar panels. Okay, now I'm going to tell you more about solar panels next time. But solar power is limitless. It comes from the sun, and solar panels convert sunlight into electricity. There's silicon crystals in solar panels that produce the electric current when the light hits it. And when solar panels are on a house, the electricity is shared between the house and the national grid. So I have solar panels on my roof, which I'll tell you more about next time. But it does mean that I get free electric. As the sun is shining, I get free electric through my solar panels, which is brilliant. And also, I get to feed it into the grid. So anything extra that I don't need, that I don't store, I can send into the grid, and then other people can use it. And that's got to be nice and friendly. They do get charged for it though, unfortunately. Whereas I don't get charged for anything I use from the sun. So solar panels obviously installed almost on any building. They could be. We have them on the roof of our house, but you can have them on sheds, you can have them in fields. The sky's the limit, well, kind of, with solar panels. But and the advantage is obviously you get free electric, it's clean, I'm not having to buy it off the grid. All of those are advantageous. So you need to pause me now where you get those two questions answered. So what is electricity though, right? We've talked about forms of electricity, but what is it? Well, it's used through generators. That's how it's created. Benjamin Franklin discovered electricity in the 1700s, and the story says he was flying a kite with a metal key attached to it during a thunderstorm, and the lightning hit the kite and it went down into the key, and he suddenly realised it's a miracle he didn't die, but I think it's just a story that sort of explains it. But it wasn't until the 19th century that electricity started to be used in homes, and as you know, it wasn't until really the mid-20th century that that was widely adopted. So let me just show you, using my son's electronic kit again, let me just show you how that works. Okay, I just said I'd explain to you how electricity works, okay? It's not massively complicated. Here is your power, which for my sake is a battery. This is where you'd have your turbines for your hydro, or you'd have your solar panels, or you'd have your wind, or whatever. This is what generates the electric. Okay, and then it goes out onto a circuit, and circuits always go from positive to negative. Okay, so here we've got it's passing through the light. There's a switch here to control it, to join the circuit up so it's not on all the time, and then it goes back round to the battery. So what happens is when I press that, it looks like magic's happened, the lights come on, okay, because the circuit's connected. But what you can't see happening is what's happening to these batteries. These batteries are actually losing current because when they're passing through there, the light's taking power from these, okay, and the circuit has to be joined up for it to work, but the light's taking power from these, and therefore there's less power in these batteries. And not just is it creating light, it's creating heat as well, because light generally does create heat. So that's the way a circuit works, okay? It all joins up, and it starts from your energy source, which is your wind or solar or gas or coal or whatever. Starts from that, gets sent around the grid, okay? And every time someone uses some of it, there's less of it that comes back, which is why the national grid's so important, because you can pull it from different places, but also that's why they turn turbines on and off, or coal power stations on and off, because the idea is that nothing gets back to where it started. Okay, that's kind of roughly the idea, and therefore they have to match supply and demand. So the national grid, we spoke about the national grid before, talks very much about different ways of getting electricity, and there's a brilliant website, I say that because I'm just a geek, called gridwatch.templar.co.uk, and what this does is it shows you where the national grid is getting all of their information from, all their power from. I was captured this one evening, so solar is kind of above my head and it's kind of not working because it was at night time when I screen captured this. You can see the UK demand through the national grid is 38.55 gigawatts, which is quite a lot, but it's not in the orange. You can then see the CCGT, which is gas consumption, burning gas in order to generate electric. 18.96% of our usage is coming from that. Now, the thing with that is that it is cheap. Okay, well, I say cheap, relatively speaking. It is one of the cheaper ways to burn electric, but equally to make electric, but equally it is a fossil fuel, and therefore it's not necessarily the best to use, and it's something that as a country we do need to wean ourselves off. You've got nuclear, okay, so we're pretty much at capacity. When I screen captured this, 15% of our electric generation was through nuclear fission, not fusion. Don't confuse the two. So the one that we spoke about last time was looking into the future, things that had only just happened on a very small scale. We have nuclear reactors in Britain, and that's where we get, and it's a fairly clean way of producing electric, just the output of it is the problem in terms of the nuclear waste. Wind, okay, 40% of our electric was being generated through wind turbines, and again spoke about those earlier. It is a massive way of us in the UK. Just above my head then, the small dials, you've got pumped, which is kind of a bit like hydro. Where pumped is where they actually send the water back up the hill and then send it down again. So they send it up in quiet times and then send it back down again. That's called pumped. So it's like hydro, but it is sort of more artificial. Hydro next to it as well. A little bit of that going on. No solar. Biomass, which is basically fuel from things that are potentially being burnt. You've got coal there as well. A little bit of coal's being used. Britain's trying to wean itself off. And then the other ones just above my head is where we can get power from other parts of the UK, other parts of Europe, which is something that we spoke about when we were doing the national grid lesson. Okay, so just thought I'd share that with you because it's quite interesting to show all the different ways that we can generate electric and put it into the grid. So you're going to have a reflection task in a few moments. I want you to imagine what the issues will be in 20 years' time if we're not using fossil fuels or we've run out of them. So you need to think back to the work that you did last time as well. We're going to describe different approaches to where energy could come from. Would this be similar or different from today? And what sort of things do you think would demand more energy? Because the more connectivity we have, the more electronics that we use, the more energy we potentially would need. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is in a few moments, I've got another clip to show you, to think about where does power come from? today and from the future? What may happen if it's not windy or sunny, and how could we overcome that? What do you think might power cars in the future? What do we need to start building now? And think about the connectivity of the Internet of Things, the idea that everything connects through the internet. So I'm going to play this to you. I'd like to watch this. This might give you some background that's going to help you with this final task.
We've all heard of green energy, but what about smart energy? Thanks to new innovations, the future is looking brighter than ever. I'm Sarah Lamptey, and we're here to look at the technology of tomorrow. So Alice, how's the world of energy changing?
So we all know that burning fossil fuels is dirty and causes climate change. But actually, the majority of the energy that we currently produce is done so through burning fossil fuels in a few large-scale plants. In the future, we want to see thousands of small-scale producers of low-cost renewables. This means that people like me and you can both generate and trade our own energy locally.
Okay, so I get renewable, but why is local power better?
Well, these big power stations are only about 50% efficient as they throw away loads of heat. Local basically means less waste, so any surplus heat that is generated can be used to heat local homes and businesses. Also, less power is lost as it doesn't have to travel so far along the power lines.
So what's this we're hearing about the Internet of Energy?
It's about using connected digital systems in order to control how and when we either use or store energy.
So the internet will help us balance supply and demand?
Yeah, essentially. So even today, the most modern appliances, such as your dishwasher or fridge freezer, have what we call interconnectivity. And that means that they can be programmed to either use or not use energy when we need them to.
Okay, so what does this mean day to day?
Well, it's all about flexibility. For example, at halftime at a football match, there's a surge in energy demand. This means that you can either turn on a power station to meet the demand, or you could power down appliances such as your fridge freezer for as little as 10 minutes. Even better, if you've got an electric vehicle plugged in, it can automatically know that there's a big demand and that prices are high, so it can sell some of its stored energy back to the grid and make you money.
But energy bills have been skyrocketing for years. Will this really make a difference?
Yeah, I can understand your scepticism, but actually, we've been building so many renewables in the UK that when it's particularly sunny or windy, there can be too much electricity going through the grid, and they'll pay you to use it or store it.
So basically, it's free?
Yes, essentially. The smart energy system of the future will allow you to take advantage of the energy when it's free.
Brilliant. So what do you...
Okay, you've not missed it, but just before I put that final task back up, we said we'd identify renewable and non-renewable sources of energy. We'd identify investigate Earth's limited resources and describe the impact on the environment if those resources are gone, and discuss what electricity is. And that's really what we're doing in terms of investigating Earth's limited resources. That's our task now. So I'm going to leave this on the screen. I've gone through it with you already. This is your task, and this should take you the rest of the time that you've got. You need a good paragraph of information, as usual, please, to support your work here, and this is what will go towards hopefully your level 2. So you are looking at sort of some detail in this. Well, I'll leave that there, so you're going to have to pause me, but thanks for your time. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, wash your hands, God bless you, and I'll speak to you soon.